evening. You're watching the Super Saturday debate here on CNN News 18 with me, Ritma Bhatnagar. Has Air India become a public urinal? Well, that's the question many have been asking over the last 1 week. Shankar Mishra, the man who urinated on an elderly woman, has finally been arrested. After evading arrest, Shankar Mishra was arrested from Bengaluru and then brought to the national capital. He was produced at the Patiala House Court and then was eventually sent to 14 days judicial custody. Air India has also finally cracked the whip and derostered one pilot and 4 crew members of the flight that had Mishra on board. The Air India CEO has also issued a statement accepting that there were lapses on the part of the airline. With Shankar arrested, the question is, will the crew also face action now? But the larger question also is, will this case now become a precedent for airlines to relook their protocols?
तो इस पे जो हमें कंप्लेंट मिली थी उसके बेसिस पे एफआईआर हमने 4 जनवरी को की और इसके बाद तलाश जारी थी। तो कल हमने इनको जो एक्यूज्ड हैं इसको बेंगलुरु से अरेस्ट किया है।
Right now, what you're seeing in the visuals is the Ramki apartment where Air India case accused Sanjay Mishra was picked up by few CCB officials and Delhi police as well.
उसमें जो कार्रवाई हो रही है वो कार्रवाई समाप्त होते ही उसका एक्शन भी तीव्र गति से लिया जाएगा।
So even as the investigation is on, a lot of parallel developments are taking place. Today we've had a very detailed statement come in from the airline Air India as well, where the CEO for the first time has accepted that there were lapses on part of the airline. Let's break down the details of what we've heard from the Air India management. Firstly, they say we regret and are pained about the incident. Remember, a lot of criticism has come Air India's way, questioning the delay and the lapses that we saw by the crew members on board. This is what the CEO further says. We could have handled the matter better. What could have the crew done when there were guidelines in place? Why were the protocols not followed? Why was the elderly woman not shown the basic sensitivity and empathy? The CEO also further says a show cause notice has been issued to the cabin crew and the pilot as well. Furthermore, crew members have been derostered, 1 pilot and 4 other cabin crew members. As far as the airline is concerned, there is now an internal probe that has been initiated into lapses by the staff. Remember, the DGCA has also issued a show cause and Air India will be responding to the DGCA as well. But this is what is very, very crucial to note. The airline today is also saying that we are already reviewing the airline's alcohol policy as well. How much is enough and how much should be served to passengers on board? While all of this is happening, a lot of big questions still remain. Let's break down those details as well. Remember, this case happened on the 26th of November. 27th of November, the lady files a complaint. 28th is when the first complaint is filed by Air India, and the first action on Shankar Mishra is taken only on the 4th of January. So the first question is, will crew members be held accountable as well? Second big question, where airlines now relook their alcohol policy. How much is enough, as I pointed out earlier? Will stringent action be taken against unruly passengers? We already have protocols in place. Is implementation the issue? Will DGCA tighten the norms for airlines? Remember, the DGCA has also issued guidelines for airlines at large. Can the airlines be quick to comply with regulations? If you look at the DGCA regulations, if you have an unruly passenger on board, even as far as the inquiry is pending, the airline does have the option to take action. Will this case now become a precedent for airlines is the larger question. Let me also introduce our guest to take this conversation forward. We have aviation lawyer Sarosh Damania. We have Neetu Shukla, ex-in-flight service director, Kingfisher Airlines. We also have Captain Amit Singh, aviation expert. Good to have all of you on the broadcast with us. Captain Amit Singh, I'd like to begin the conversation with you. Shankar Mishra finally arrested. Airlines also now speaking up. We've heard from the CEO of Air India saying we could have done better. But we still go back to the larger question, which is, when protocols were already in place, why were they not followed?
Well, there are certain regulations and procedures. If you look at regulations, the DGCA regulation as per the Aircraft Rules 1937 is that no person shall board an aircraft or be in an aircraft in an intoxicated state. So intoxicated state has a definition where the person is not, speech is not coherent or not coordinated or cannot behave properly. So the procedures in the Air India Operations Manual clearly state what is the limit. So the limits are already defined. 12 ounces of beer, 1 glass of wine, or 1 miniature of whiskey or hard liquor. So this is there, and depending on if it is a long haul flight or a 4 hours flight, how much alcohol to be served and spaced out per hour. But the question is, this is only for the economy class.
Yeah.
The manual clearly states that for executive class, this does not apply. So what applies is the aircraft rules that the person shall not be intoxicated. And the crew is trained to determine that. As we have heard from a witness, that the witness was in conversation and could kind of determine that the person is intoxicated and alerted the crew. When the crew was alerted, they should have immediately stopped or stopped serving liquor, which is the SOP, and segregated the passenger because, again, in the conventions of aviation, which India is signatory to, there have been cases in the US wherein the court has ruled that while the person was intoxicated and the crew continued to serve alcohol to the person, he was a potential threat to people on board and to the aircraft. So you are arming a person basically to disrupt the whole flight, which is a 16-hour flight, and in the middle of nowhere, we don't have enough airports to divert.
Yeah.
So there are regulations in place, but why did Air India give this particular clause that this is not applicable to business class, executive class, or first class? So that is something that they're bending over to please the passengers, because that is where the maximum revenue comes from.
Yeah.
Even if you see the Air India website for
so
economy class.
That's a crucial point that you're
show
making, Captain Amit Singh. You're saying, did the crew intentionally try to dismiss the case only because this passenger was from a business class? They wanted to keep that loyal base intact to possibly have more business coming in. That's a crucial point that you're making. But Neetu, I want to bring you in the conversation, and we've all been trying to wrap our heads around what really happened. Why did we not see a sense of empathy and sensitivity from the crew, which should be the first human reaction? But I want to put yourself, I want you to put yourself in that situation, and I want to understand from you as an ex-cabin crew, if you were in that situation, what are the red flags that would have gone up in your head? What are the kind of steps that you would have taken to, first try and contain the situation, offer help to the elderly woman, but also parallelly try and already inform the pilot that something is wrong?
Before I get to what my reaction would be, I just want to raise 2 small points, if that's all right.
Sure, please.
We were just quoted Aircraft Rule 1937 on intoxicated passengers. India did not allow alcohol to be served at the boarding gate on any airport. If you have a rule which says people cannot enter the aircraft in an intoxicated state, why was the rule changed to allow alcohol to be sold at the boarding gates of our domestic flights? This rule basically applies to domestic flights predominantly. We've allowed alcohol to be sold. People will consume the alcohol, and obviously then they're going to get on the aircraft in an intoxicated state. So there itself, we've categorized revenue over flight safety, which should immediately be stopped. Secondly, if you want to know how to take action swiftly, then you need to look at the MNC from which this gentleman has come. They did not wait for the whole inquiry, for the whole thing after 45 days, 41 days when it comes up in the media to then try and take action. The minute they were appraised of the situation, they took action. Air India management had the voyage report. They did nothing about it. The CEO had a letter and he did nothing about that either. So we Indians need to learn how to deal with situations. And if we don't know how to, then at least look at the MNCs and learn how to deal with situations. Secondly, coming to me, if I was on the flight and if such a thing would have happened, Firstly, I would never allow that lady to go and sleep on the seat or sit on the seat which was soaked with that gentleman's urine. I would make him sit on that seat if there was no other seat available. Even if there was a seat available in first class, I could never turn around and tell the lady that the captain is having his rest, so I can't really allow you to stay in the same cabin where he's having his rest. Because at any point of time, there are always two pilots in command. So it's not like that pilot in command was having rest at somewhere and there was nobody commanding the flight at that point of time. It's a call that I would take, and I would definitely shift the lady in first class. I think the witness has said that two of the crew, Rebecca and Ruby, went over and above their call of duty and helped the lady out. So I think the crew did what they could in terms of at least dealing with the lady. Where the other crew probably went wrong, and very, very grossly wrong, is making the person talk to this lady.
Yeah.
How can you allow the gentleman to talk to this lady? I mean, I'm saying gentleman out of my decency.
Sure.
How could you allow this man to talk to this lady? She was traumatized, clearly. And then to expect her to talk is amazing. I would have informed
Neetu, it was
captain.
not just the
They
fact
have
that they
something
didn't,
called
offer her an alternative. They wanted her to sit on that seat which had, the urine of that man. But more importantly, even on arrival, nothing was done. This man should have been handed over to the authorities.
People to security for far less. And like I had said earlier, I have handed over passengers to security. I did not need to take the captain's permission to hand over someone to security because I was heading the cabin. And the captains generally do trust your judgment at that point of time. Otherwise, there's no point in me heading the cabin, right? So the in-flight supervisor could have easily taken the step on her own. And it does not take the lady's complaint to take you to the CISF. You are empowered to do that on your own. I'm surprised at what the captain said, that there are different rules for alcohol consumption for business class and economy passengers. Fortunately, none of the airlines that I have worked for have had that rule in place. It's very sad.
And it was not just the fact that, what is even more shocking, Neetu, is that the fact that other co-passengers were already raising an alarm that this man looks like he's had enough. You need to cut off the alcohol supply to this man. So a red flag should have already gone up that can this man become a larger threat. So I'm trying to understand why none of these red flags went up. But Sarosh, I want to bring you in the conversation as well, considering the fact this man has finally been picked up. He was produced at the Patala House Court. The police wanted police custody, but they finally gotten judicial custody of 14 days. Does Section 314, can that be made up as far as this case is concerned?
See, as far as legal perspective is concerned, now, once upon any accused being arrested in a matter, he has to be taken before the magistrate court within 24 hours. Of course, the accused was produced over there. Magistrate went through the case, and whatever I read about the case, what happened in court, the magistrate declined to give the police. Police sought at least minimum of 3 days police custody of the accused to investigate the matter further. And I think, of course, being the gravity of the situation, being the delay caused in this matter, police was justified in asking for 3 days police custody. The magistrate has refused upon grounds that most of the sections which are put in the FIR are bailable sections, only one non-bailable section which is there. And of course, he has been put into judicial custody. The accused lawyer has also filed a bail plea. Of course, in India, only a bail plea can be filed once you get judicial custody. In this case, as judicial custody was immediately granted, the accused lawyer has there and there itself filed a bail application also. The notice has been issued to the Delhi police on the bail application, and the bail application, as I believe, is scheduled for hearing on the 11th.
Yeah, that's right.
So, in all this scenario, everything now comes to light. What is the situation? How could the situation have handled better? What Air India could have done on that day itself, which would have not grossly got this situation. Of course, lot of evidence in this matter has been tampered because, of course, the seats have been cleaned up, the clothes have been washed. Lot of crucial evidence which would have assisted the police in the trial to prove the criminality angle. So now, of course, there are two aspects to this matter. One is the criminal FIR, which is be filed against, of course, various sections, and one is the investigation that is going to be done by the airline, and thereafter submitted a report to the DGCA, and the DGCA are only going to decide which level of no-fly list is he going to be put on?
Yeah.
Of course.
Well,
that is
there's
not
also
going to get
another
the-
case being made by the legal team of this man who's now been arrested, that already an agreement had been reached between both the parties. Some sort of compensation was also given. But whether that compensation was given, not given, that's not even the story. The story is this man was a threat on board. Why did we not have the crew and the airline take any stringent action? But, I want to go beyond this discussion, because over the last 1 week, we have been discussing what the crew could have been, could have done better. We're already hearing from the airline that an internal probe is on. Captain Amit, I want to bring you back in the conversation to understand how this case can now become a precedent for other cases in the future, because unfortunately, this really won't be the last case that we are seeing. Unruly behavior is a pattern that we continue to see with a lot of Indian passengers. As far as a relook on the alcohol policy is concerned, this is what we've heard from the CEO of Air India today as well. How important is that today?
See, let me clarify. When I said that the rule for limiting the number of drinks for economy does not apply to business class, I'm reading out of the Air India Operations Manual.
Sure.
So it is not out of the hat. So there has to be, this is a international guideline. And international guideline also applies, which the Indian aircraft rule says that no person shall be on board in an intoxicated. Intoxicated has a definition. So while you cannot board in that position, on board also you should not be, and you should not be leaving also in an intoxicated state. So Air India needs to apply it to every class, be business class, executive or first class. Now let's look at the rules. Had the same flight been from Delhi to New York, the person would have walked out, and no matter what India wanted to do, nothing could have happened. The person would have gone scot-free, because India is signatory to the Tokyo Convention 1963, which has a lacuna, which states that judicial action, the jurisdiction of the state of registration of aircraft, which is India. So India can take action, but not on US soil. So that is the lacuna. Luckily, this was the reverse. The Indian aircraft landed on Indian soil. So I'll give you a hypothetical situation. A US airline lands in India. British passengers, for example, has argument with the crew, punches the crew. The pilot reports it to the CISF. The person is taken for investigation, but no charge can be leveled on the person, because the airline is from the US. As per the convention, the aircraft has to be registered in India to take action. He will walk scot-free. So to remove all these issues, there's a new convention of 2014, which is the Geneva Convention, to which India is not a signatory.
Okay.
So we need to update our rules to this. If you look at European Union, as per their statistics, every 3 hours incident takes place according to the disruptive passengers definition.
Sure.
And one flight every month is diverted because of unruly passengers.
Yeah.
This is a global trend. They said this is a bigger threat than a technical or weather-related issue.
Yeah,
so
that's correct. And Captain Amit, it's not just a relook as far as policy and guidelines are concerned, as you're saying, but also I feel it's the fear of the lack of punishment. Because if you just compare to the punishment that India has for unruly passengers vis-a-vis what our foreign counterparts have, where there is a hefty amount and a jail term attached, that is far lesser in India. So that possibly is also becoming a larger factor as to why we continue to see cases like these. But Neetu, I want to bring you back in the conversation and to increase the ambit of this discussion, which is why do we continue to see such an increasing pattern of unruly passengers? Even as we are discussing this Air India episode, today another episode has happened on a Go Air flight where two passengers were actually offloaded because they misbehaved with the crew. One of them asked a female crew member to come and sit on his lap. Good on the airline to take that action and offload them. But I'm trying to understand, why are we seeing such an increase of unruly passengers?
The only reason you're seeing such an increase in unruly passengers is because of social media getting more active. Please, for 1 minute, don't assume that these things never happened earlier. There was a lot of unruly passengers, a lot of unruly incidents that happened earlier, which is a point I've tried to make before this discussion as well.
Sure.
We have gone through a spate of such incidents, not exactly in this nature, but unruly behavior. And this is not a new phenomena at all. In fact, maybe things have gotten a little better now. The only reason it's coming to light is because of social media. Now, the thing is that in the West or in other countries, the tolerance to such behavior is extremely low. People don't tolerate such behavior. By people, I mean the authorities. In India, the authorities are very lax when it comes to all of this. Firstly, you have to see who the person is connected to, which class of travel, whether the airline wants to get its name sullied or not in such a discussion, whether they want to be seen getting tough on passengers, or whether we genuinely want to waste our time taking action. Because to go and register an FIR and then to waste your time doing things like that and then keep going to the court, our whole procedure is very tedious. If we want to genuinely make a difference, we need to streamline our processes. We need to have accountability. The reason we hear of flights being diverted in US and in Europe for unruly behavior is because they get that kind of support from the authorities and from the airline itself.
Okay.
The only reason we don't have as many diversions because of unruly behavior in India is because our threshold of tolerance is very high. We put up with such behavior. And secondly, you may not have the kind of backing that you have. So if we get down to a zero tolerance policy, I think we'll be able to control this much better. And honestly,
but you don't need to more than a low threshold. What
at
this
least
also
these things come to
exposes
light.
is an extremely sick mindset of the passengers themselves. This entire attitude of having the audacity to walk up to a female cabin crew and to say things like this, or in this case, to even urinate on a co-passenger. It shows the sick mindset of the passengers that is also increasing in the recent time. But Sarosh, I want to bring you back in the conversation as far as this particular investigation is concerned. Considering the fact, the case that the legal team of Shankar Mishra is now making, that there was already an agreement that was reached between both the parties. We in fact had paid a financial compensation as well. But many days later, the daughter of this elderly woman decided to return that money. We did whatever we could on our part. Can that have an impact as far as this charges against this man is concerned?
Absolutely not. There are two different aspects to it. One is from the criminal aspect, a crime has been committed. Police is investigating the matter, and of course, after the investigation is complete, after the trial goes on, the accused should be punished for that. Now, what they are trying to get in is a different angle to it, that they are trying to talk as if it was a monetary transaction of a civil nature. They are going on the principle of civil law of concluded contract, that there was a contract, there was a offer, there was an agreement, and the issue is over. That cannot be the case when it comes to a criminal matter. You cannot buy off anybody in any, like, there will be no criminal matters. Everybody will settle, pay money, go out scot-free. So if you could have just gone out, get away with the crime by paying money, there would be no cases, there would be no criminals left. Every rich person with means would just pay off and get away with it. If it is like you stab a person and then take him to the hospital and say, oh, I stabbed him, but I took him to the hospital. That is why, oh, please let me go. I have done a good deed. So there's absolutely no justification. This is a very cheap trick, or I would call it a very stupid thing what they're coming up with, of course. But one thing is sure from that is to their disadvantages. At least they have admitted, Shankar Mishra's lawyers have on fact admitted by his own WhatsApp chat that he has committed the offense of urinating on that victim. So, of course, it is one way. I believe it is a disadvantage to them to come out with such a thing. And this is just a gimmick they are trying to play. Of course, law will take its own course.
And no sort of defense can really defend a case like this, because as we've been saying, it's bizarre, it's unfortunate, it's absolutely horrific. We can't even imagine the trauma that the elderly woman still continues to go through. Police officials are saying they're not even able to question her because she's that unwell because of this entire trauma, and understandably so. Captain Amit, I'll give you the final word. Going forward, can this case now become a precedent for airlines to have a larger relook at their policies, and what can the steps be that can be taken by airlines?
We have to make a comprehensive policy. We have to look at the culture which prevails, the reporting culture in the airlines. So why does this happen, and why do the crew not report? There have been studies conducted in the US of about of cabin crew being sexually harassed. and 8,700 crew in US and about 2,700 in UK underwent this survey, and shockingly 26% of cabin attendants and 11% in UK said that they were sexually harassed, and there was nothing done, no support from the management. So a comprehensive policy about sexual harassment, child molestation. ICAO has a policy, a manual, Doc 10117, but India needs to implement it. So we need to, everybody, all the stakeholders need to sit down. There are policies and everything is in place, but we are not updating our rules with the global trends.
Yeah, so you need to have all the stakeholders come together and have a more comprehensive look, or possibly a relook as far as our current guidelines are concerned. Here's hoping that we don't have to discuss something like this going forward. I really appreciate all the time taken out by our guests. I'll have to leave that conversation there. We're shifting our focus to some breaking developments coming in. As we said, unfortunately, the pattern of unruly passengers still continues. Now, Russian passengers on board a Go First flight were deboarded after their unruly behavior on the flight. The incident took place in the flight GA372 on the 6th of January. During the overwing briefing, 2 passengers used offensive language, abused the crew, and continuously made fun. The crew first politely informed the customers and the passengers to not use such language. However, the passengers continued to doing so, and at that time, the call taken by the airline was to offload these passengers. The larger question is, will we see better sense prevail going forward? I'm leaving you with that thought. With that, it's a wrap from my side. Thanks a lot for watching.